Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We are going to get started at about 3 minutes after the hour, so bear with us. We had a full attendee list today, so we want to make sure as many people are able to come on as possible. We will keep you for just an hour, don't worry, and we will get started shortly. Thank you again. Hello to everyone rolling in. So many people joining today. Apparently it's a topic of much interest. So we do have a full group, a full set of attendees and registrants today. So we're just gonna wait just about 2 more minutes before we officially get started. Thank you so much. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for spending your hour with Arcserve today. We're going to get started in just a couple minutes. Before we get started, some housekeeping. We will definitely be recording this, so we get that question a lot. You will have access to both the recording as well as the PDF. We will send it to everyone who attends today, so don't sweat. If you are wondering if you're going to get the material, you definitely will. We really appreciate you guys joining us today for a very topical conversation about increasing your data resilience. My name is Janine Edwards, and I am joined by Sean Massey, who is our VP of Consulting and Sales Engineering. Thank you so much for joining us, Sean. We're always so lucky to have you.
Thanks, Janine. It's great to be here.
And what we're going to do today is, first of all, nobody leaves without a prize. So that's pretty exciting. Every single person who attends has the opportunity to have lunch on Arcserve. So we're going to be sending everyone a $20 Grubhub card. Give us a couple of days to get all those out the door. And then I teased you a little bit when we were recruiting. We said we were going to give away one $300 gift card. We're actually going to give away three gift cards, right, throughout the course of the presentation. So as we finish the sections of the messaging and the content that we're sharing with you, we'll stop for a second, make sure we drive home the takeaways, and then we'll randomly select. I've got my friend Jordan on the phone. He's on mute right now. He's going to be doing some random selections, and they go up in value. So you get more, you get the opportunity to win more the longer you hang out, right? So the first one is $50. The second one will be $150. And the last will be $300. What we ask of you is to keep your listening ears on, take notes. There's a lot of great information that we'll be sharing with you, from thought leadership and trends all the way to some technology that is geared and designed to make sure that your data resilience is increased. And the Q&A pane is a place where you might want to hang out as well. I'll be monitoring questions while Sean's talking. Additionally, we always want to be respectful of everyone's time. So at the top of the hour, I never know if it's the top of the hour or the bottom of the hour. Is the bottom of the hour the 30-minute mark, Sean? The top of the hour? Anyway, at the end of our hour, we will stay on for 10 more minutes if you have more questions. We always do that for you. But we'll make sure and finish the content before we wrap up. All the good stuff will be shared. So let's get started. What do you think? So let's get started with kind of talking about some trends that are going on around data, right? And data, as we really know it, is simply the lifeblood of your organization, right? Organizations of all sizes, it's at the heart of every single business. Digital transformation has determined that you must use data to drive competitive differentiated growth. And, it's really a business accelerator. So what's happening when we think of some of the challenges that come along with that is this sort of tsunami of data growth, right? And here's some interesting stats that always blow me away. Data creation is going to rise to 180 zettabytes by 2025, right? And when you think of that, that's a pretty great number if you know what sort of the sizing of zettabytes versus petabytes, et cetera. I think zettabytes, Sean, a zettabyte is equal to all the grains of sand on a beach, right? Typically, so think of that times 180. 90% of the world's data has been produced in the past 2 years, right? And a lot of that is most of that actually, not a lot, most of it's unstructured data. So when you think of the other sort of trend, if you will, more like a challenge, an epidemic, is sort of the ransomware epidemic that's hitting your organizations at an incredible pace, right? So ransomware is going to cost the world, or it did cost the world, $20 billion in 2021. That's expected to increase to $265 billion by 2031. And as you think about what you're doing in your organizations, or where your organizations play as far as verticals, the top targets for these bad actors are education, government, and healthcare. So when you sort of add these two trends and challenges together, what you're left with is, simply put, more data to manage, more data to protect, and more data to probably recover, right? So our job, right, as Arcserve, for those of you who may or may not be familiar with Arcserve, Arcserve is committed to making sure that we help you manage and protect that data, right? So what do we mean when we kind of talk about data resilience? So data resilience is simply, really, to be simply put, is more of an up-leveled concept of business continuity, right? And Sean really gives me the slides are anyone else seeing the slides being cut off? Sorry, I'm seeing that. Sean, the slides look okay on your part?
I'm inside the app, so it is a little cut off from what I'm seeing here, but let me look at the questions pane. Maybe somebody's.
Are they able to be?
They are cut off.
Are they? Okay. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Sorry, guys. I want to make sure we get this just perfect for you. This will take just a second. Okay.
That looks better.
Oh, but it's paused. So hold on a second.
Gotcha.
Let's see if we can make this work for a second, guys. Give me just a quick second. Thank you for letting me know. We'd hate for you guys to have, let me just show. How's that? Better?
Yes.
Beautiful. Okay, thanks, guys. Sorry for this small interruption. So anyway, let's go back to, I actually love the concept of how Sean actually describes data resilience. We think of data resilience as a rubber band, right? The data in your company as, say, a rubber band, right? It's elastic, and it's able to be, when it's stretched or compromised, right, and pulled in different directions, that data gets stretched. And when we remediate the compromise, and that rubber band, if you will, the data that gets, sort of back to productivity is as is prior to the compromise, right? As is. You're not just like surviving in the face of compromise. You're able to thrive in the face of compromise, whatever that compromise is. So that's what we mean by data resilience. And when we think about why you should choose Arcserve as your technology provider of choice, it's because this category, as we just talked about, is so critical right now and will continue to be so. And it really requires really critical selection criteria when thinking about solving for that challenge of protecting your most critical asset. And when you're making that selection, are you ticking off, sort of these boxes, right? 40 years of innovation. We definitely know a few things about sustainability and growth, right? We're an industry pioneer, and we continue to innovate. The largest footprint of data resilience solutions, creating one unified platform. That means you have right fit end-to-end solutions or non-disruptive components, all meant to, at the end of the day, raise your data resilience. Another thing we're very focused on is lowering your TCO. while we future-proof your data. So no matter what the size of your organization is, we help you build a solution, a resilient solution that fits from software to hardware to cloud options or all three. Always looking at the gold standard of data protection and bringing that, right? Consistently delivering across the three critical pillars of resilience: prevent, protect, and recovery, and flexible licensing that's able to grow with you. So we never want you to start bigger than you need. We always have the ability to bring you a solution that fits with what your budget is and how you want to consume that, and simply pay as you grow. So those are the sort of values and the important critical check boxes of what Arcserve brings to the table. And this is really a high level look at our huge solutions footprint, right? And how our solutions fit across the entire data resilience category. Today, we're going to focus mostly on two sort of crown jewels, which we talked about. One is called OneXafe, and it's our immutable storage appliance. And one is SaaS Backup, which is our expanded and refreshed cloud-to-cloud data protection solution, the data that comes in SaaS applications. So with that sort of setting the foundation, I'm going to turn it over to Sean, and Sean's going to take you through sort of what's going on as far as trending for ransomware protection, and head into talking about one of our exciting technologies, which is OneXafe.
Thank you so much, Janine. So Janine really set the stage really well as far as the challenges that we're seeing these days, and it's not the challenges that we see as Arcserve, but it's the analysts that really are telling us about, you know, this tsunami of unstructured data that's waves. We're in this explosion right now of unstructured data, and then we don't need any analysts to tell us about ransomware, right? Unfortunately, we talk about ransomware almost all day, every day, you know, in that data protection, data resilience type of scenario. So to go to the next step, so when we think about a ransomware prevention strategy, I wish I could tell you, hey, it's just one thing. If you do this, this is all you need. Unfortunately, that's not the case. What we are looking at is really a layered approach or a multimodal strategy, right? There's not a silver bullet at all that happens. It all starts with, you know, of course, the edge, cybersecurity. You know, when you're doing the privilege access management, you're doing identity access management, making sure that the people that are logging in are the right people, and you know who they are, and you've verified all of that, right? And then if we move counterclockwise, it's about processes. And the processes, probably the biggest process, is educating our users, right? Of knowing, hey, yeah, don't just blindly click on this, because you know, making sure that we're scrutinizing that email or going to that website or whatever. We want to make sure that's there. But that processes also include, you know, making sure that we have good practices in, like multi-factor authentication, and making sure that we're going through the exercises that we need to do to know that we can be resilient, to know that we can recover when something bad happens, right? So we're there. And then finally, in the space that we sit over on the lower right-hand sector, it's really, you know, if all else fails, then it's about recovery, right? And knowing that you can recover, and how do you recover, and in what ways are you doing that, right? So this is really kind of the strategy as we kind of lay things out based on the problem of just this managing this humongous amount of data. So over the years, and I've been in, I was on a webinar yesterday, and my colleague went up to me because he said, oh, I've been in technology a lot longer. Actually, Pete's a good guy, but I've been, you know, in the IT world for well over 25 years. And when we looking at specifically the piece of 321, that 321 has been around for a long time. So basically, Janine, if you don't mind building out a couple more of these slides so we can actually see what the 321 is, and let's start there with the 321 first. 321 basically means, number one, the 3 is 3 copies of the data, right? So Many folks count the originating, the actually production copy as one copy, right? That production, the original copy is copy number one. Then we have a backup. So the backup goes, that's going to be copy number two. And then for the 3-2-1, the best is to have an additional copy, right? So we would actually have 3 different copies of the data, the originating, and then 2 copies of that data, and that could be certainly in backups. You know, that's there. The two is the media, 2 different types of media. Now, I'm not saying it's tape and spinning discs or whatever. I'm not talking about that necessarily specifically, but one thing I want to just kind of promote is that, you know, having been in the consulting world and working for a solution provider, I can't tell you how many times that I walk into an environment where they have this nice, shiny, new, expensive SAN, storage area network, and they have the SAN, you know, serves up the LUNs that serves up all of their virtual machines, and then they carve out a LUN that actually just is for their backups. So what that means then is the backups and the production data are on the same piece of physical equipment. That's a big no-no, right? So we want to make sure that we are separating that. We want to make sure that it is, because if you ended up having a hardware issue, then not only have you taken down your production data, but you've also taken down one of your backup pieces. So then you're probably looking at, you know, somewhere else at that third copy, right, wherever that's at. And then the one piece is really all about having an offsite, right? And so when the folks that designed this 3-2-1 way back in the day, whenever they designed it, you know, they're thinking, hey, we can overcome a local disaster, you know, a machine that dies, because we can restore it. We've got the data local. It can encounter an issue that on the site, you know, a fire, flood, tornado, hurricane, or whatever, because we have offsite data, right? So we're able to do that. The problem with 3-2-1 in today's landscape of ransomware is that ransomware totally blows up the 3-2-1, or it can. This is an observation. This is not an analyst or anything that is informing me, but this is my observation, is that ransomware has an uptick just prior to any long weekend. And we're coming next week. We're going to enter in probably the longest weekend for some companies of the year, right? So we're heading into Thanksgiving. And what that means is that often these bad actors, they're sitting on the network, and they've been sitting on the network for a while, and they're scoping out and really mapping out all of the different resources that they have. They know where the data is being backed up to. They know where, if it's being replicated, it's doing all of that, right? So then they're waiting for the most opportune time. And in my opinion, an opportune time is right before this long weekend. So probably, you know, next Wednesday, a week from today, you know, folks might be in the afternoon might be saying, all right, this is the right time. People are leaving early. People are going to start this long weekend, and then they can deploy that payload of ransomware. And the ransomware can go several hours without being detected often, right? So it starts churning and encrypting and all that good stuff right there. Well, then all of a sudden it's after hours, and then we have Thanksgiving, and then we have the day after Thanksgiving, people are off, and then the weekend. And then what will happen is that the production data starts to get encrypted, and the backups are still running at that point. So the backups are backing up that encrypted data and then sending it off to the repository, which then sends it off to the cloud, wherever the cloud is, right? So it could be possible by the time that somebody comes in on Monday morning after 4 days off, that everything is gone. It is truly a disaster at that point. So that's kind of the flaw of 3-2-1 in the sense of the ransomware world. Now, IDC is looking at that, and they say, all right, hey, Our recommendations today is to add an additional one on there. And that additional one can be either an air gap solution, and I'll talk about that in a second, or immutability. So air gapping, as you might, when you would think of about a physical air gap, this might be running something off the tape. And by the way, Arcserve, which has been around since 1983, and if any of you guys oldie but goodies that are out there might remember, Cheyenne, Arcserve, where we were doing Arcserve backup, which is file and folder, right? We're seeing a lot of our sales of our Arcserve backup, starting to increase because people are using it for air gap solution, right? Because it can be a very inexpensive way of doing that. But air gapping has a couple problems with it. Number one, it's a very manual process, right? So I was out at a customer of ours last year, and they were looking at they were looking at the time at our immutability storage, and I'll talk about that in a minute, but they were air gapping, and they have probably about 600 terabytes of data that they had to air gap, and it took them 3 weeks to get all of that data written to tapes that would take off. So as soon as that 3 weeks was done, then they start all over again, right? And then if you think about that, if it takes 3 weeks to get it offsite, how long will it take if you need to recover, right? So that is a huge thing. But air gap a physical air gap by definition is that it is buffered. It is not a part of any network. It is not, local. It can't get to it. People are not able to do it. So that's good, but the data ends up being stale. It's a lot of labor. It's very labor intensive in order to manage and to be able to do that. And so air gap is kind of hard. The second option for that 3211, right, is actually immutable storage. And immutable storage has come really a long way. And of course, the technology industry has, it's not us, but it's the technology industry has really kind of come up there. Immutable storage means that when we write data to that storage appliance, it cannot be changed. It is essentially a worm, right? Write once, read many, right? And back in the day, we had worm drives that you only could write to them once, right? You could read to them many times, right? But you only could write to it once. That's what's happening here. So write once, read many, so that if something does go sideways and you do have a ransomware attack, you can very quickly be able to bring everything right back up. So that's really setting the stage, and I'll turn it back over for a moment with Janine. Sorry.
Sean, you've known me for 400 years. Okay, so I'm gonna let that one pass. So guys, it's time for a prize, right? So I've got my randomizer friend in the background here who's gonna put all the names of the folks that are in today's session as of right now into the randomizer. Before we do that, just to recap, the three sort of big takeaways from that first section is the data tsunami is absolutely real. It is not just reserved for enterprise customers. You're going to have much more data to manage, much more to protect, because data is simply becoming the heartbeat of the organization. As Sean said, ransomware protection, there is no silver bullet. It requires a multi-pronged approach, and you should really think about the vendor that you're working with, the technology supplier that you're working with, to ensure that you have all the components that you need to raise your data resilience. As Sean just said, the new recommended gold standard of protection is 3, 2, 1, 1, with that last one being immutability. Sean, you ready to give this $50 away? Jordan, you ready? So Jordan, I wish we had like a virtual drum roll. Jordan, please tell us, come off mute, Jordan, and tell us who has won our $50 Amex card. Jordan.
Yes, our good friend Brandon Butler with City of Fort Worth, Texas. Yes.
Brandon Butler, claps all around. Claps all around. Brandon, we'll get you that gift card as we wrap up the session. So congratulations to you. Hopefully you've had your listening ears on, and that $50 was well spent on our part. Okay, so Sean's going to start talking specifically about our solution to immutability. Go for it, Sean. And don't forget, guys, you got 2 more chances to win. You just got to hang out with us until top of the hour.
Excellent. Thanks, Janine. So what I've done so far is I kind of set the stage up, for that 3, 2, 1, 1. Now let's really kind of dig into the immutability and let me tell you more about the appliance of what we do. Number one, it's immutable, right? And this is object-based storage, right? And we've got an object store. It's our proprietary operating system. So actually where the data, the objects actually are written, are not accessible, from the network or anything else like that. So when we write it, we write it once, and we never overwrite it when we turn on that snapshot feature, right? And so I think I might have saw a question in there about okay, do you have to turn it on? Is there extra cost? The only extra cost is that, depending on what your retention policy is for the snapshots, and by the way, the snapshots run every 90 seconds, and then we will have snapshots, that will roll up, hourly, daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, or even forever. So if it's forever, we never overwrite it. So as you can imagine, if you're keeping items for 7 years on the immutability piece, it won't drop after it's been deleted. It actually won't drop off that data for 7 years. So the cost actually is incurred is actually storage, but storage is fairly inexpensive these days, so to speak. But so that makes it there. The second piece, because we're object-based, it allows us to be scale out. And what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is that you can pay as you grow, meaning if you have one, you can start with one appliance, and if you start to fill up that appliance, no more rip and replace. You can just then add a second appliance to it. You can add that, and it can be live. It has no impact to the network, and then boom, it automatically in the same namespace, it automatically adds that there. So what that means for you is that you don't need to figure out how much storage space you're going to use over 3 years or over 5 years, which is the way that you typically spec out storage. You just need to know, what am I going to use this year to get in? So then you budget correctly for this year, and then as you're doing it, oh, hey, we're starting to get to that utilization. We need to put another appliance in the following year, so that way you can go ahead and add that in there. So we've got immutability, we've got scale out, and the third piece is, Janine, if you can.
Oh, okay, there we go. Sorry, I'm usually so good at predicting when you're going to move to it. So apologies.
Yeah, I kind of changed it up a little bit for you there. All right. So the third piece is actually object-based. So because it's object-based, we're not doing like your traditional SAN is, block storage, obviously, but also that traditional SAN is RAID level. RAID really starts to have a lot of performance problems when you get up into very large environments, right? So we're object-based storage. So what that means is we're writing for redundancy. It's not RAID. We're actually writing multiple copies of the object. So either RF2 or RF3. RF stands for replication factor 2 or replication factor 3. Another way to look at it, are we writing 2 copies of every object, or are we writing 3 copies of every object? And what that does is it gives us the ability to say, hey, can you lose 1 simultaneous drive in your cluster, or can you lose 2 simultaneous drives in your cluster, right, at the same time, because it keeps all of the data all the way around. And then finally, as we're looking at it, we've made this very easy because to manage and to set up and to use, because we've got this network attached storage head on it, the NAS head on it. So it uses NAS protocols. You can access it via SMB, or you can access it via NFS. Very nice and easy to use.
Sean, I'm answering questions. I'm so sorry. Okay, there you go. There you go, sir.
All right. So what does immutability really mean? All right. So I've already talked about worm, write once, read many. The data is fixed. We're writing the object down into the object store. And once we write it, we don't overwrite it again until, something falls off of that retention policy that you set. It's unchangeable. It cannot be deleted, right? So if there is a ransomware infection and it comes and it finds your SMB share that you have out there, and ransomware says, oh, I found a share, I'm gonna encrypt it all, and they encrypt it, and you say, oh my gosh, it's encrypted. Well, actually, that would be very easy to overcome within maybe a minute or two, and that's realistic, right? I can very quickly from a command line promote one of the snapshots into as another share, right? Which is really nice because, you know, when you think about one thing I haven't said, but when you think about these appliances, we have enterprise features, including, you know, global dedupe, right? Inline deduplication, but globally across everything. So when we present a share from one of the snapshots, it's not incurring additional storage on there. It's just presenting it as it looked from a specific point in time. The beauty about this, and I think I saw a question on this, but the beauty about this is that, guess what? You can test your ransomware infection, right? Because it won't have any type of impact to your network. I can go in, I can say, all right, we're going to pretend we have ransomware, and I want to promote a snapshot from a month ago. You know, you can very quickly be able to do that.
Is that answering the question of how you would prevent an already infected piece of data from being copied onto the appliance? Is that?
No, not. I mean, okay. What I'm actually doing is I'm talking about really when we go back to that, you know, slide about 3 or 4 slides ago, when we're talking about our strategy, we're talking about our DR strategy. One of the strategies that I really promote lately is actually testing your ransomware recovery. That is, you're testing your resilience, so to speak, right? So you know, you can do that, so you know what to do if actually probably when you do encounter a ransomware infection, and you say, okay, I practiced this, I already know what to do. You go in and you can promote it, and then when you're done, there are some steps where you can then remove that share, that new share that you've created, and it has no impact to the rest of your network. So how does immutability work? First of all, the data gets written to the share, right? What we're doing is we're setting up our continuous snapshots. I talked about that every 90 seconds, right? And that 90 seconds, then we can keep those snapshots for hours, days, weeks, years, or forever, right? To be able to do that. Ransomware cannot change the snapshot, and it cannot change the data where the objects are at under the snapshot. It doesn't have access to it at that level, right? It can't do it. So then finally, what we're able to do is promote that for a nice instant clean restore to be able to do that. Now, we can promote the whole share, which is beautiful, but also keep in mind from even just from a data loss and a whoops, somebody deleted something, you can pull out individual, you know, files and folders from a snapshot and restore those too. Very easy, very quick, and very efficient to be done.
Now, can you talk to that question? There was a question that says, hey, if something is already impacted or compromised, how do you stop it from being copied to the immutable box? Does the immutable, you know, does that question make sense? The question came up twice now.
Okay, let me look at the question because it doesn't.
It says, how do you prevent, you know, if ransomware is already impacted the data, how do you stop it from being stored on the immutable appliance?
Yeah, and that's really where you're looking at your layers of protection to try to prevent yourself from getting compromised to begin with. What we're talking about here is there is an infection already on your network, but we have now made your data resilient. So yeah, while all of a sudden you look at it and that rubber band is stretched out, guess what? I can within a minute or two I can bring that back. Now, I mean, truth be told, there's lots of, you know, I write business continuity plans and disaster recovery plans, or I have actually in the past. You know, there would be, you know, a whole level of protocols that I would want to go through, because you certainly want to make sure that you no longer have a bad actor on the network. You want to make sure you find exactly where the payload is at, right, to be able to do that. So there will be some steps to be able to do that. But ultimately, once you identify where that ransomware piece is at, you can go and you can recover that share, and then you can zero target, maybe the payload or whatever that's there, and get that off of there. But the ultimate goal is to get your business back up and performing again. We've seen over the last many years what happens to the impact of when ransomware hits. JBS, which is the North America's largest meat supplier, got hit with ransomware about 1.5 years ago, and all of a sudden our beef supply prices went sky high because they weren't able to do any production. Same thing with that pipeline in the southeast of the U.S. When that got hit, they basically shut everything down because they had to. They were just basically stalled and weren't able to do that. What this allows us to do is to come back up and be as resilient as possible.
Can you back up a critical server and restore that server?
You certainly can, and then what we would be doing with that, the backup, program, certainly that we have, with the OneXafe, and taking a little bit of my thunder from later, the OneXafe is agnostic to any data protection program. So whether you use Arcserve or whether you use something else, it can be a target for that. And so even if they find that target and they encrypt it, you can represent it, and then you can use your data protection then to restore from the point in time that you want to be able to restore. But the quick answer is yes.
Great. You want me to move to the next slide?
Please do.
You got it.
All right. So what does scale out bring to the table? Well, when we have a cluster, and it's kind of funny to say this, right? A cluster can be one unit, right? It's under one namespace, and you can add multiple units to that cluster up to a max of 7. So you can have a 1-node cluster, a 2-node cluster, 3 or so, all the way up to 7, right, to be able to do that. And the most important piece is that they operate in a single platform under one namespace. So for instance, we sometimes see folks that are utilizing NAS appliances for some of their storage, and their QNAP gets filled up and they add another QNAP or another Synology, right? And then they have another, but now they have their shares all across everything, and when people access it, they have to, you're editing all of the login scripts and everything in order to do that. Well, here, as you add storage, it's not adding distinct units, it's actually ends up working together as one cohesive unit, as in one namespace, which is terrific. We are able to add disks into empty slots into our chassis, or we can add nodes into a cluster that is non-disruptive. So you don't have to have a maintenance time. You just go ahead and you put in fact, I just did this with my OneXafe unit that I have at my home lab. Just 2 weeks ago, I added more storage, and basically adding more storage is that I had open slots, and I had purchased hard drives, and I just plopped them in, and immediately it saw, hey, I've got all this extra space that's there. It's really, really good. Already talked about the nodes, so the disk and the nodes are there, and we become fault tolerant. So if you're running, replication factor 3 and you have 3 nodes, that allows you, if you were to lose one of those nodes, you could still run off of 2 other nodes, right? So you could have 1 node down to be able to do that. And then finally, this is really more of a business we do. 3-year or 5-year warranty. It's next day automatically, but you can up that to 4-hour response in case something were to go wrong. So when we think about this architecture, the fiber channel, the traditional SAN uses like fiber channel or iSCSI, and that's going to a
Oh, Sean, I think we lost you. Sean, we have lost you. Hold on, guys. Let's get Sean back. Give us a second. Oh, Sean, you there?
Yep. Sorry about that. So just had a little issue with the headset, but so the traditional SAN utilizes fiber channel or iSCSI connections to it. It's almost like a one-to-one type of thing. So for every single machine that would be able to access that, you would have to have that that direct either the iSCSI target to the LUN or the fiber channel, right? And it goes to the block store. And then if we go and
Sean, we lost you.
If you go ahead and expand that slide there, Janine.
Okay, you're still coming in a little bit in and out.
The NAS is, as we look at that, the NAS is still use that block store, so it's still using RAID on below, but their file protocols, they can use SMB and NFS, for that, right? And then Apple and Google and Amazon, they started out with this object store process where they're object-based storage, just like what we've talked about, right? But their access to that is REST APIs. So it makes it kind of cumbersome to be able to get there. And then finally, what we've done with this immutable appliance is that we've taken the best of the best. So we've taken the NAS interface, so we're using NFS and SMB. And then on the back end, we've got this object store that allows you to do what you need to do. So that's basically under the hood of kind of how we've architected this solution. So going to go through a couple real quick use cases. So this certainly can be a part of a network attached storage. So if you have, if you need additional storage, or you're going to want to consolidate some of these NAS appliances that you have, it's terrific because then it adds additionally it adds immutability to it. Also, it can be secondary storage. So the secondary storage is one that perhaps we've got things that we're archiving. Perhaps it's things that we are going through, and you might have.
Sean, we lost you. Sean? I don't know, guys. I'm so sorry if Sean's having some issues with his headset. Sean, you there?
So sorry, everybody. Can you hear me now, Janine?
Yes. Right. Yes.
So this has not happened to us before, so I apologize for this. So,
very rare for us, but that's okay.
You gotta love. It's almost like the live demo. You got to be able to do that. So when we look at secondary storage, like for instance, a lot of police departments they've got all of this body cams and dash cams, and they need to store it. They need to archive it somewhere. This is a perfect use case for that. Or surveillance cameras, on-prem that you need to keep it for a period of time. Once it's there, you can dump it off to the OneXafe, and it's terrific. The backup target is also another really good use case. And again, I said this a little while ago, but we're agnostic to any data protection program, so we can be the target for the backups itself, and then it offers that immutability. And then finally, we can do the last one that we're looking at is that whole notion of the 3-2-1-1. So we can, it's not just a backup target, but it's that whole replication of your backup target to another location to be able to do that. Makes it really good, makes it very effective to do that. Okay, Janine, can you go through pass through? I think I talked through all of these.
Right. Yeah, we are. Okay, got it. Okay, so the net on this, guys, is a ton of use cases for this appliance, right? Depending on what's going on in your environment today. And so go ahead, Sean. Sean's going to go through sort of a profile of taking a look at your environment and saying, do I have the ability to pop in a OneXafe to make sure that I am up leveling my data resilience?
Yeah, and everyone should have cyber insurance, right? And what we're seeing these days is that cyber insurance is now requiring folks to have immutable storage in order to cover it. And if you do the next hit the next one too, especially this is true when folks have been compromised by ransomware. Once you've been compromised by ransomware, and if the insurance has paid out on that, they're going to be very specific on what you need to do in order to be insurable anymore. And so often this continues with immutability. So those two, at the very beginning. And the next one is that if you have an environment that has multiple NAS appliances that you're trying to manage, you can consolidate that down to one. We also, because you're in there, it gives you that immutability story that allows you to go with that. And then the next one, as we look at, we see often, we would consider this tier 2 storage, right? It's object-based. It's meant for either, like backups, or it can be a file server, but it's not. If you're looking for performance, and you need really the tier 1 piece, right? Folks will end up buying their tier 1 storage. They're very, very expensive net app that can stream, on there, and then they put their virtual machines on there, and then they might have they're also using that tier 1 storage for their backup, their unstructured data. And so this is a way to actually extend the investment that you've already done with your tier 1 and segment off that unstructured data off to the OneXafe, because it's more inexpensive and it gives you that flexibility. And then if you have, along those same lines, I've come across, folks that, they've got these very, pure storage, or they're the net apps or whatever, and they're serving up their VMs. And then one of their VMs, or one or more of their VMs, are big file servers. And these file servers then have massive amounts of data. Well, one of the things that folks can do is they can actually go ahead and utilize the OneXafe as their file server, right? And so when you have multiple rings, we can do replication between those rings, and between the replication and those snapshots that are happening every 90 seconds, you are protected, from even losing individual files and stuff. You can go back and be able to do that. So, as you look at these environment, at these little things, if this makes a trigger, you might be a really good candidate for the OneXafe itself.
Great.
And finally, sorry, we come across sometimes like multimedia companies or marketing companies or even architectural firms or whatever, where they have a peer-to-peer network and they don't have any centralized storage. The OneXafe is great for that, because not only does it give you that centralized storage, but it also gives you that immutability piece to be able to do there. So another great use case to go with that.
We had a lot of questions coming through, Sean, on this one. So, sort of how it's sold, those kinds of things, what it looks like out of the box. So hopefully there was some specific questions around, how, when you're going through this, like if we could talk about the 4500 being the most recent, very recent hardware refresh and refreshes in general, et cetera, while you're talking about this.
Yeah, so when we look at this, these are appliance models. The 4512 is the model in the spinning discs, right? And then on the after the dash is the raw disk space that you have. So the 4512-96 is 96 terabytes of raw storage, right? The 144 is 144 terabytes and 216, and that's per node, by the way. So as you kind of calculate that out, if you're doing the 4512-216, you have, what does that say, like 1.5 petabytes of data, raw storage that you can potentially have. So you can see how expandable it is. We're all 10 gig connectivity, and very flexible in the way that you build this out.
So when we think about Arcserve, right, guys, and we're going to head into our little takeaways, but there's not a lot of organizations out there that are providing sort of this true end-to-end solution, but that can also be broken up into component-based solutions for your environment, which is sort of what the OneXafe is all about, right? And so we're going to go ahead and move to our second prize, but first let's talk about the takeaways of that second section. OneXafe creates a very Swiss Army knife approach to your environment, meaning its flexibility and what it solves for is fantastic, very differentiated. As Sean talked about, it combines immutability, object-based, and scale-out features and functions. It solves for several use cases. It easily raises your data resilience, and it can be a non-disruptive ad. So those are our takeaways for that section. Jordan, can you come off of mute and tell us who the 150 winner is of the Amex card? I'm going to do the drum roll. Drum roll. Go ahead, Jordan. Hit us up.
Yes.
Who is it?
Excellent. We've got Martin Chen from Little Caesars Enterprises. So yeah, very exciting.
We want a pizza for this 150. All right, we'll give you 150. Get us a pizza. Okay, great job, Martin. Congratulations. Golf claps all around. Let's keep moving. We also want to give you a quick sneak peek of something that we're super excited about. Obviously, everyone knows the importance of cloud-to-cloud data protection, and we've had a cloud-to-cloud data protection solution for a long time, and we've recently really focused in based on the growth of SaaS data, right? And SaaS applications, focused in on expanding and refreshing the solution. And again, as an education perspective, that Gartner predicts that by 2025, one major software as a service provider will be breached by hackers, and that's going to lead to data loss, costing customers more than $100 million. And the reason that we talk about this so differently, and you guys are probably more aware of this than anyone, is that when it comes to the provider of the service, right, and how the service works and it being delivered to you, they got that, right? But when it comes to the data, right, the user data, that falls on you and the organization, right? And not a lot of people realize that. And one of our best friends in the life, and when it comes to SaaS providers, Microsoft says right on their MSA, we recommend that you regularly back up your content that you store on this service using a third-party app. Right? So even Microsoft is saying, hey man, not our problem if you get compromised, if this data gets compromised. And the interesting thing about it is we talk a lot about ransomware, and obviously now a ransomware threat to our SaaS-based data, but actually 73% of all compromises and loss and problems come from human error, right? So facing a very, very, very different problem when it comes to data loss in a SaaS-based application. And so we have SaaS Backup, a very, very creative name, Sean. SaaS Backup is the name of our solution. And it is it is a SaaS application that is providing coverage for not only some of the most popular solutions out there, but Sean's going to take us through some of the new ads and also give us a quick overview of this extremely robust, important piece of your multimodal approach to protecting your data.
Yeah, thanks, Janine. So when we're looking at the SaaS backup, of course we can do Microsoft 365, and of course we can do Google Workspace, and a lot of the competitors that out there of ours can do that. But our differentiator is the number of different SaaS applications that we can back up. Like we can do Salesforce.com. We can back up Azure AD, and we have a basic version of Azure AD, and then we have a what we call Azure AD Plus. That is kind of a more advanced version. So we're able to do that. We're able to back up Microsoft Dynamics 365. We're able to back up Zendesk, and that's actually a new one that just came out. And we're looking at other SaaS platforms that will be able to integrate in the future. So we've got a really good comprehensive piece that happens to be there. And one of the things that our customers, specifically have asked for, and we've really kind of delivered, is a role-based access control, right? So we have this. So if you have your IT departments and you want to delegate, maybe you have an intern that is helping you, and you don't want to give them complete access to everything. So that happens to be there. You can give them just limited support, so that will allow them to go ahead and do restores on request and whatnot. So there's a lot of data here. It's a little bit of an eye chart on this slide, but you've got a lot of flexibility as far as the way that you configure the access for managing the SaaS backup. Our data center presence is around the world now. Some of you may have your maybe a global company, so you're able to do that. So right now we're in the United States, obviously, in Canada and the UK, Denmark, Germany, Australia. We're also looking at other data centers to bring online in the future. But these are the ones that we do that. And then if Janine, if you go to the next slide 2. And this is really kind of the differentiators that we have. The top 2 here are the ones that I like, really from a standpoint of what's most important, is we are data sovereign, which means we're not in the public cloud. So we've seen issues over the years, where public cloud might have some outage. In fact, it was Christmas about 4 or 5 years ago. I think I sat down with my family to watch some Christmas show, and then all of a sudden there was an AWS thing, and Netflix wasn't able to promote that. So we're in our own data centers, and we've got basically 2 data centers. So in the US, we have 2 data centers. What we do is we write 2 copies of the data in one data center, and we immediately mirror that to the other data center. So essentially there's 4 copies of the data for redundancy to be able to do that. And then we are utilizing blockchain technology for this. So that the way that we are doing that gives an immutability to that backup in and of itself. Of course, we're doing encryption at rest, and we're encrypting the transport and everything that kind of goes through that. But we've got we're just very proud of the way that we have positioned ourselves in this market, and we are the leader in being able to do that. Next slide, Janine.
Yeah, so what's great about this solution is not only in addition to it being robust, right, leading edge, going to where the puck is, skating to where the puck is as it relates to the growth of SaaS, but also a fantastic promotion on it, right? So when you work with your authorized reseller, hopefully you have an authorized partner. If not, we can certainly introduce you one. You definitely have a dedicated sales rep here. So, and that dedicated sales rep can get you in touch with your authorized reseller, as well as kind of tell you how to deploy both SaaS backup and OneXafe into your environments. On the SaaS backup side of the house, we have 3 years for the price of 2 right now, right? So you're able to save money. And when you purchase the prepay 3-year subscription, you pay for just 2 years. So it's like a 3 for 2. In addition, we also have a pretty interesting incentive going around out in the wild for our OneXafe appliance. So when you purchase OneXafe alongside one of our actual UDP appliances, there's it's a bundle. It's called a ransomware bundle. So you can ask your dedicated sales rep about that, or your authorized reseller. So lots of great ways to get into the savings on these 2 critical components of your ransomware strategy. And that's what today was all about, right? Giving you the option to understand some of the prongs that we provide in the multi-pronged approach to ransomware. Our crown jewels and our new kid on the block, OneXafe immutable storage, as well as SaaS backup. And now, guys, it's time. It's time for our $300 giveaway. Okay, I want a little excitement, a little virtual excitement going on. It's a big number. So as far as takeaways, before I give that away as it relates to SaaS, remember always that your SaaS data is not and probably will never be protected by the application provider, okay? They're only interested in providing you the service. 73% of all data application compromise from SaaS applications is due to human error. And we are so proud that we are coming out with Arcserve. So we come up with Arcserve SaaS Backup as the most robust data protection available for SaaS applications. 4 total copies of the data, 4, right? Along with immutable backups, pretty strong and covering a ton of different applications already. Who's ready for the $300? Who's ready? Who's ready? Who's ready? Jordan, you put everybody in the randomizer, and you're gonna pull the winner for us. Come off mute and tell us who's walking away with a great Thanksgiving treat, if you will.
Randomizer checked. We have, with the $300 gift card, Ray Ostad from Farmers Insurance.
Oh, Ray. Everybody give Ray a big old round of applause. That is a lot of fun for Ray. We want to really thank you guys. We always try to be really mindful of getting you out an hour. So without much further ado, we first want to say thank you. Thank you for spending the hour with us. Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Sean, for hanging out with me. I've really enjoyed it. And then also thank you, Jordan, who's responsible for our virtual randomizer. So we want to say thank you to those guys. We will definitely stay on for a couple of minutes. We do have a few questions that are popping in that we'll stay on for. We'll stay on usually for about 10 to 12 minutes afterwards. If you'd like to stay on and ask more questions, please do. Otherwise, we're going to officially sort of conclude the content portion of this, and again, we'll reach out with the recording as well as the PDF of the slides. I hope you guys have a really great rest of your afternoon. Take care.
Thank you, everyone. Hey,
Okay.
for those that are staying, I've got a couple questions that I'm just going to answer.
Okay, you got them.
Yeah, one is talking about the appliance themselves and how often does the appliance get upgraded. Our appliance policy actually is that we will support the appliance. I mean, we do have maintenance and everything with that, but the appliance will support it 5 years after the ship date, for sure, right? So you can, if you buy an appliance, it's not like you would buy an appliance and all of a sudden, 6 months later we say, oh no, we got this other appliance, we're not doing anything anymore. But we end up handling it that way, right? So that's kind of the way we do that. And then when you're looking at the other question that I was looking at, I don't actually see a downside right now, or have heard of a downside of blockchain that I can think of. Blockchain seems to be one of the cool kids these days, right? Because a lot of folks are jumping on that. There could be certainly some downsides of that, but nothing that I'm specifically aware of. And then there was a question regarding, I believe it was the SaaS backup, and does it include updates and size upgrades. We're not. It's all based on seats, and it's based on the products that you're backing up, right? So it's based on seats that you use, and so we're not actually charging you at all for space usage that's there. And then if there's update, obviously you automatically get that. So because it's a cloud to cloud type of backup that ends up happening.
Did you see this OneXafe question here on I'm expanding it here.
So there is a question here on OneXafe Solo. OneXafe Solo.
I answered that, Sean. I got it. Yeah.
You answered that one. Great. Sorry.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. There's one specifically the NFS, I think. Do you see that one? On your OneXafe, since it does NFS, does it work as well as VMware storage?
I'm a transparent guy. It does, right? So, but that is not. This is the OneXafe is not built for speed and performance. So, what folks will do is they will carve out like an NFS, and they'll use it for their VMware as a data store, but actually to archive virtual machines. So if all of a sudden you have a virtual machine that you've replaced or it's no longer used, then they will then do a storage vMotion and move it out of the more expensive storage and put it in there, because it's not something that's being served up. If you're looking for storage in order for your VMware, in order to be a data store for your VMware environment to serve up the VMs, this would not necessarily be a good fit for that. So just would want to be very clear for that, because this is really more on that secondary archival backup type of storage. File stores are different because a file server doesn't require all of that that performance piece.
Great. I think we have a kind of a specific question, and you know, as it relates to the immutable snapshots, right? The snapshots, if the can a bad actor delete the snapshot?
No, they don't have. Yeah, I mean, that's part of the architecture that we have. The snapshots are, you know, and I'll tell people tell me all the time. They'll call me up and they'll say, Sean, all right, I see the snapshots folder, right? Because you'll see it in the share, and because that's how you'll do like individual files or folder. And they say, I can delete everything in the snapshots folder, and it goes away. And then I say, well, press F5 on your keyboard, and then it refreshes, it comes all back, right? So the snapshots are all read-only, and there is not a way to physically get access through any of that obturation. The operating system that we have is proprietary, and the file system is actually presented as a service. So where the data is located, they can't physically get access to, so they're not able to delete the snapshots or the original objects that are created.
Oh, we got a question on the Grubhub card. I changed my mind. No one's getting it. Just kidding. We send them out electronically. Don't you fret. If you didn't walk away with an Amex card, you're gonna get a Grubhub card. It does take us a couple of days, so just be real patient. And we have a great way of understanding who stayed till the end, and that's how we definitely will pass those over to you via your email. So look for them electronically, probably by the end of day Friday. So just be patient, because there's a lot of you guys on the call today. And I think that covers all of the questions. I want to thank everyone for joining us. I specifically, you know, again, want to thank Sean and Jordan, and I hope you guys have a really great day. And, you know, here's to no ransomware in 2023. What do you think? Have an awesome day, guys.
Thank you, everyone.